Hello and welcome back to the Scotti-BYTE channel. This is Scott, and today we're going to talk about VLAN VPN Gateway as a Service. So in the VPN Gateway Server for your LAN video, we created a simple Ubuntu server that used OpenVPN to create a gateway to a NordVPN public VPN server. To use it, all you had to do was set any system on your network to use this gateway server as its default gateway. We're going to now define a VLAN and place the gateway server on the VLAN and make the DHCP default gateway on that VLAN point to the gateway server. We will also create a wireless SSID for this VLAN. So the result is basically that any system connecting to this VLAN will automatically use the VPN connection for all of its traffic. So the first step is we need to create the new VLAN. So I'm a Ubiquiti Unify user, and there's an example of going into the network section of the software-defined networking program. It gave the name of the VLAN to be atf-vlan. I set it up as a corporate LAN, which means that routing from all of the various other VLANs go back and forth between it unless you set up a rule otherwise. The VLAN number 200 is the VLAN that we're going to use for this demonstration. I just arbitrarily picked 200, sounded like a good number. And then the address range for it is going to be 192.168.200.1 with the subnet mask of 24. So that makes the default gateway IP on the router to get to the internet to be 192.168.200.1. And then we have an address range in the 200s, of course. The DHCP range is set up to be 200.6 to 200.254. And then I went down and set the DHCP gateway IP to be manual, and I overrode the standard 200.1 gateway, and I made it 192.168.200.2. So 200.2 is going to be the address of our gateway server when we're done. So then the next step is we're going to create a wireless SSID for the VLAN. So we go into wireless networks, and I created this thing called atf-vlan, just what I called it. It's a name on my network. Whatever you want to call your SSID is fine. It's just the wireless network name that people will scan for. I set it to WPA personal. If you have a server and you do WPA enterprise, you can do that. I set up a security key since it's WPA personal, so this is the password for the wireless service. And then the way you make a wireless service talk to a VLAN is you go down into the network and you hit this drop-down list, and any VLANs you've created on your network will show up here, and that's how we've created a wireless SSID for the VLAN. Okay, the next step is to add the VLAN to the server. So you're going to connect to the console of the gateway server. We're going to edit the YAML file, which we find in /etc/netplan. The name of your YAML file may differ, and you'll have to go off and do a sudo to edit the file. We'll save the file after editing it, and then we'll do a sudo netplan apply to have the changes take effect. So what does the netplan YAML file look like? Well, this is the netplan YAML file I had. We just had the top section in the previous video where we had Ethernets. ENS3 is the name of the Ethernet that you have on your device. So I'm using a VM, and my VM's network NIC is called ENS3. And you'll remember from the last video that I set the address for it on my main network, which is 172.16. I set the address to 172.16.30.30 and a subnet mask of 16. And then the gateway is simply the gateway on that network, which happens to be 172.16.0.1. And then I set Cloudflare as the two addresses for the name servers. So what we're adding to this time is we're adding a VLANs section. And in the VLANs section, I'm adding atf-vlan. That's just what I want to call the adapter that gets created on the gateway. I put ID is 200. That's the VLAN number. That's very important to have that match the actual VLAN number. And then the link is back to ENS3. It's back to the physical device up here. And then you'll recall when we set up the VLAN on the Ubiquiti Unify, we set the network up to use 192.168.200.2 as its gateway. Well, that's the address that I'm setting here for this particular server on that VLAN. And then the gateway that this server will have is 192.168.200.1, which is the real address outwards. So basically, everybody that connects to the system uses the 200.2 as the address, and this system uses 200.1 to route the traffic. And this system enables the connection to the VLAN like we saw in the video for the gateway server. So then the only other step we have to do is from the last video, we created a file in Etsy OpenVPN called iptables.sh, and we want to edit that script. And inside that script, a little ways down, there are 4 addresses. And we used to have these addresses set to 172.16.0.0 on our network, but now we want to change all 4 of these to point to the address range of the VLAN. So all 4 of these addresses should be 192.168.200.0. And then once you do that, go ahead and save the file. I finished all the modifications that we just discussed. And here I have a command prompt on my system where I offer my LXC containers. Anyway, if I try to do an SSH over to Scott at 172.16.30.30, you'll see that it never makes a connection. And the reason is we've changed the IP routing tables on the gateway server such that I really have to originate my communication from the 192.168.200 network, and I'm not on that network. So likewise, the other address that we created for that server is 192.168.200.2. And also, I can't make a connection to it either because I'm on my 172.16 network, and it only accepts communication from that network. I'm going to list out my containers with the LXC list, and you'll notice that none of these containers are operating on the 200 VLAN, and I need a container on the 200 VLAN to communicate with my gateway server. So I'm going to do a LXC profile create VLAN 200. I've already done that prior to this, but that's the command that you would execute. And then the next command, in my particular case, is going to be a LXC profile device add VLAN 200 Ethernet 0 NIC type equals MAC VLAN, parent equals QVS 0, and that's QVS 0 simply because my network or my server here has that as its physical device. And then finally VLAN equals 200. So I've done all of those commands so far, and if you say LXC profile list, you can see that I have a VLAN 200 profile, but currently no machines are actually using that profile. To create a container on that VLAN, we're going to do a LXC launch Ubuntu 2004 I'm going to call the name of my server VPN client. I'm using profile default, and I'm also using profile VLAN 200. Security.privileged is true. The CPU limit is 2048 megabytes or 2 gigabytes, and the CPU allowance is 20%. And I say set its auto start to true. So it's creating the VPN client, retrieving the image, and the client is started. If I do LXC list, you can see that the VPN client is running and its address is 192.168.200.142, so it is in the VLAN network. So I'll do a LXC exec VPN-client bosh, and that connects to the VPN client. Now that I'm on the VPN client, I'll do a sudo apt install net-tools, and ifconfig, and you can see there again 192.168.200.142. So now that we're on that network, we should be able to SSH Scott at 192.168.200.2, which is the address of our gateway server. We acknowledge the fingerprint, we type in the password, and there we are on the VPN Gateway Server. Okay, if I exit and go back to the VPN client, we said that anything that got added on this network, this 200 network, would have as its gateway the connected NordVPN service. So let's see if that really is the case. Let's do a curl ifconfig.me, which will bring back your WAN address. And my WAN address is 2.56.188.37, which is actually the IP address of a NordVPN server in Dallas, Texas. So it worked. And likewise, if I make a connection to the network from a Wi-Fi device, it will also be automatically connected. And in this way, I can have many clients connected to one NordVPN connection. Here we are again back at the gateway server. And if I do an ifconfig here, you can see that the gateway server has 192.168.200.2 as its address that we just connected to, and the name is atf-vlan. And then the standard controller is still running at 172.16.30.30. That's ENS3. That's the untagged VLAN, which is the connection to the main network, but it doesn't work because of the routing rules I set up. And then there's a loopback connector. And finally, because the VPN connection is up and running, we have tunnel 0, TUN0. And its address is 10.8.2.5. If you connect to a VPN, you'll notice that your local LAN address changes from your private address to a NAT address of the tunnel. So in summary, to build the VPN gateway, refer to the VPN gateway for your LAN tutorial that I did a couple of weeks ago. We created VLAN 200 for our gateway as a service in this video, and we added VLAN 200 to the gateway server using the Netplan command. We modified the iptables file we created in the first video to point to the new VLAN addresses. And we created an SSID for our gateway service for wireless access. The result is a VLAN network that automatically connects to and shares NordVPN connection for any wired or wireless server on the network. This is an easy way for devices like phones, tablets, Rokus, and smart TVs to always be connected to a public VPN without having to configure VPN software on each individual device. Thanks for listening today, and please subscribe and like to the channel, and we'll see you next time.